Hello friends, you are probably waiting for my analysis because I have worked very hard to try to understand what has happened. You know that I am not satisfied with simple or official explanations, but I try to find the 3 feet of the cat. I have not wanted to take any current video about the assault on Congress as other channel did. I continue to digest the events to reflect on what happened. This chess game is not over yet, although an important move that was planned has been lost. Opinion article. No surprise. Storm over Washington. It was like the assault on the Bastille. The president doesn't accept defeat. Lin Wood was right about Pence. Wood believes Trump has not relented. Wave of resignations in the White House. Twiter blocks the president's account. Trump promises an orderly transition. This is not over, just getting started. Mike Pence's disloyalty was already known. Nothing else was expected of the vice president. It's not the last letter left Trump. They tried to remove the president prematurely. The only surprising was the assault on Congress. Discontinued cheating evidence exposure. Congress meets again to review notes. President didn't have the courage Pence didn't have the courage to reject the electoral votes. Trump activates the National Guard after the outbreak. They break down 4 security barriers in Congress. Congress secretly debates Trump's early impeachment. Let's start. The disloyalty of Vice President Mike Pence has not surprised anyone, but we refused to accept it, and we kept a thread of hope until the last moment. A thread that has not been broken, because this has not ended, but just begun, because the last opinion that Trump had left has not failed. He has more aces up his sleeve and vowed we will never accept defeat when speaking Wednesday at a rally before thousands of supporters. Every action has a reaction. As Sigmund Battery said yesterday, Attorney Lin Wood was right about Mike Pence all along. This would validated everything Lin Wood posted. The only surprise was the assault on Congress, curiously headed by a famous tattooed Viking, because he had already photographed himself several times in the demonstrations against the president with the same outfit, which would confirm a false flag attack to blame it on Trump, as the propaganda media have already done. False flag. In reality, there would have been no assault on the Capitol proper, but they would have been deliberated letting, because there were infiltrators among the protesters. The assault, led by Antifa and BLM agents disguised as Trump supporters, set the stage to justify disloyalty when Democrats and Republicans voted to install Joe Biden as president. Now, the propaganda media, big tech and lawmakers are pushing the narrative that Trump is to blame for everything, to all of his supporters are violent, and that President Biden must invoke the Insurrection Act to park all patriots. An ABC News editor is even calling for a cleansing of the nation by removing all supporters of the current president. Congresswoman Cory Bush calls for all members of Congress who objected to the votes to be removed from Congress. The only reason Senator Schumer and others are calling for the president to be immediately removed from office under the 25th Amendment is because they know he is about to act against them. 3 hypothetical scenarios would be: first, Trump would invoke military authority. Second, an armed uprising against tyranny. Third, states could secede from the Union or nullify federal laws. White House economic advisor Peter Navarro just released the second in a series of reports that explain exactly how they cheated. Strategy. This strategy would be paid off since almost 100 Democratic congressmen supported the removal of Trump via impeachment after the alleged violence of his supporters. Several sources familiar with the matter said that informal discussions have also been held on the invocation of the 25th Amendment, which deals with the succession of the president. 4 people were killed when they stormed the Capitol. Washington Police Chief Robert Conti reported that among the victims is a woman who was hit by a shot by the Capitol Police, as well as 3 other people who died in alleged medical emergencies. The victim of the Capitol shooting has been identified as a 40-year Air Force veteran who was unarmed. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. My condolences to her family. It was also very rare that the guards let them pass without a fight. I think the goal was to interrupt the exposure of evidence on election anomalies, while also discrediting the Patriots. Now, a prophetic phrase. The storm is here, has come true. Congress reconvened Wednesday night to review electoral college votes with heavily armed guards after the Capitol siege, hours after protesters stormed the Capitol. After being forced to interrupt the electoral vote counting session the day before due to the interruption in the Capitol, Congress finally approved this Thursday the results of the Electoral College that certify that the Democrat Joe Biden as the next tenant of the White House. The total, in quotes, the total number of electors designated to vote for the president is 538, with the majority being 270 for Joseph R. Biden of the state of Delaware, who received 306 votes, while President Trump of the state of Florida received 232. Vice President said Vice President Mike Pence. The missions. The president reportedly told Mike Pence's chief of staff Mark Short that he was not welcome in the White House today. Additionally, some of Trump's top advisors are reportedly considering resigning as early as tonight. Meanwhile, White House advisors said that they would resign, including Northern Ireland envoy Mick Mulvaney and top Russia advisor Ryan Tully. More departures are expected soon. Trump has 13 days left in the White House now that Congress has certified the victory of Democrat Joe Biden, but members of his cabinet and allies of the president have discussed the possibility of invoking the Constitution to remove him before that date, according to a source familiar with the situation. Political trial, an impeachment by the House, an impeachment by the Senate, or an invocation of the 25th Amendment that requires the consent of the Vice President, Cabinet, and Congress are also discussed. Trump's term would end at 11:59 a.m. EST on January 20th, if he is not removed early. In fact, InfoWars has reported that Congress is secretly debating Trump's removal via the 25th Amendment. Calls are growing for the president to be removed from office immediately through impeachment. Calls to remove the president from office immediately are increasing by Democratic members of Congress, a Democratic governor who never they have been supporters of Trump, and the propaganda media. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer called on Vice President Mike Pence to remove Trump after the 25th Amendment to the Constitution, which allows cabinet members to oust a president who is incapacitated. At least, supposedly, of course, at least one Republican and 19 House Democrats also asked for the same. But a source familiar with the situation said the effort would be unlikely to take place, as most Republicans in Congress have shown little interest in pressuring the cabinet to act. Disappointment. In quotes, Mike Pence did not have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states the opportunity to certify a corrected set of facts, not the inaccurate data that they were previously asked to certify states. United demands the truth. Close quotes. The still president has written on Twitter, Trump has been urging Pence in the days leading up to the joint session to discard electoral votes from battlefield states where the integrity of the election is in question. Speaking to a supportive crowd outside the White House, he once again called on his vice president on Wednesday to use power to reject the results of those states' presidential elections. Republican legislators contested the results of the votes in the state of Arizona West, in which triggered a 2-hour debate before certifying the victory of Joseph Biden in the presidential election. The biggest critic was the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, who wanted that disavowing voters and the courts, in quotes, would damage the republic forever, nothing before as proves that illegal acts have been taking place that are close to the magnitude that would have been changed the outcome of the elections. Close quotes. A perfect excuse. In a statement issued shortly before a joint session of Congress to certify electoral college votes, Mike Pence said that it was, in quotes, my thoughtful judgment that my oath to support and defend the Constitution limits me to claiming a unilateral authority to determine which electoral votes should to be counted and which ones are not. This is a magnificent excuse, I think, but the reality is that he feared for his life and that of his family, since several Republicans have already died under strange circumstances. This is what he said, in quotes, some believe that as vice president you should be able to accept or reject electoral votes unilaterally. Others believe that electoral votes should never be contested in a joint session of Congress. After careful study of our Constitution, our laws, and our history, I believe that neither point of view is correct. That said, Pence supported the efforts of Republican lawmakers to oppose the certification of electoral votes. At least a dozen senators, led by Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, said they will not accept the election results unless there is a 10-day emergency audit of the election results in the disputed states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada. A movie assault. The assault on the Capitol began after the Democrats began reading prepared statements claiming that Joe Biden won the popular vote and that the elections were supposed to have been fair, honest, and transparent. In reality, there is an overwhelming evidence of widespread and coordinated manipulation. People waving properly prepared flags broke through the barricades and overflowed the Capitol Police, crowding inside the building where both houses deliberated on objections to electoral votes. The deliberations were suspended and the legislators evacuated. When they broke into the building, a lockdown order was issued and members of Congress were told to cover themselves under their desks and prepare for the assault on the building. Some staff members say they are sheltering in place in the congressional offices. Police fired tear gas and ordered the evacuation of several office buildings after protesters stormed the Capitol and were seen marching through the halls of Congress, where lawmakers were gathering to certify Joe Biden's victory. Police evacuated legislators' offices after protesters entered the Capitol. Democratic Congressman Richie Torres said in a statement, Images on social media show law enforcement officers with their weapons drawn and pointing towards the door with barricades on the floor. Pacification. Due to the clashes between the police and the protesters in plural, the mayor of Washington, Muriel Bowser, declared a curfew from the night of the 6th until the early morning of January 7th. For its part, on the other hand, the state of Virginia sent National Guard troops to the Capitol to help control the protests. On the other side, the president asked his supporters to remain in peace and support the Capitol Police. In quotes, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement," he wrote on Twitter. "They really are on the side of our country, keeping peace." Trump called on his supporters who forced their way into the Capitol not to use violence and to protect the law. In quotes, "I ask everyone in the Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue uniforms. Thank you." Published the president on his Twitter account. The president activated the National Guard on Wednesday after the assault on the Capitol. Twitter has blocked the president's account for 12 hours and is threatening permanent suspension. Facebook and Instagram have done the same. Excuse me. Unpredictable future. Trump promises an orderly transition, but warns that this has only just begun. The president has promised this Thursday an orderly transition to the new administration, which will assume the presidency on January 20th, although he has warned that the fight has only begun. According to lawyer Lin Wood, Trump did not give in at all, and the transition of power does not exactly mean a transition to Biden. I repeat in quotes, Trump did not give in at all, and the transition of power doesn't exactly mean transition to Biden. Since he did not congratulate his rival or say that he would leave the White House. More importantly, the president didn't specify what the orderly transition would mean. He could be referring to transition away from the tyranny of the swamp and the return of power to the people. In his view, the president's statement appears designed to disarm those calling for his immediate removal under the 25th Amendment, so that he can continue to work on a military solution. He also retweeted another statement from Parler user Stormy Upon Us, who explained, "Sleep well tonight, patriots. The constitutional process ran to the end and Trump did not interfere once. You are going to love how this movie ends." If this were true, that the president signed it Nesara on November 2nd, there would be new elections in March. What will happen until then, we do not know. The next date and days until January 20th will be unpredictable and exciting. Nobody knows what will happen. According to Judy Bington, the coalition is in control and things were going according to the great plan. More than 600 secret indictments have been filed in federal courts across the country since the president took office, many of which were nearing completion. In the next few weeks, many things would be exposed, all in the next few months. 10 of the main news. We must take a deep breath and stand on the side of justice. Enjoy the show. Intelligence report Operation Disclosure of January 4th, 2021. First, China's economy is on the way to collapse, which is why the CCP has been trying to influence the outcome of the elections. Second, the latest aid will actually include a 180-day countdown for the government and all agencies to reveal their knowledge of UFOs. Third, this coincides, or this matches, with the trickle disclosure plan suggested by some groups within the coalition. Fourth, however, the disclosure is accelerating now, as we were told last month about the existence of a galactic federation. Fifth, the existence of a galactic federation has been known for years, and only recently was it mentioned in the mainstream media. Sixth, it appears that the CIA has known of a galactic federation since the 1980s. Seventh, whatever the outcome of the elections, 2021 is the year in which humankind regains control of the planet. Eighth, the Great Conjunction occurred on December 21st, 2020, which means that we are now in the age of Aquarius. Ninth, it is time for humankind to recognize itself as a collective consciousness and advance spiritually and technologically. 10th, the first step would be to get rid of the ox in the swamp. 11th, the second step would be the new financial system, debt jubilee and currency bailout. 12th, The third step would be the disclosure. 13. Trust the plan. And a last news. London court denies bail to Assange over risk of escape again. A British judge on Wednesday denied bail to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange because he said there is a risk that he will flee justice as the United States tries to get his extradition. And that is all for today. Thanks a lot, friends.